Hello, everyone. My name is Kimberly, and I'm from the University of California, Irvine. And today it is my honor to be here and present my research regarding the photochemistry of oxaloacetic acid and diethyl oxaloacetate. This project has significant implications in atmospheric chemistry. As you can see through this schematic, volatile organic compounds are emitted in the atmosphere through natural and anthropogenic sources after oxidation, subsequent partitioning with other molecules in the atmosphere. That's how secondary organic aerosols are formed. Secondary organic aerosol has huge impact on air quality, human health, and the climate, which is the reason why it is very important for us to study the chemical fate of these molecules in order to address these issues. We're specifically interested in these two classes of carboxylic acids because of their low vapor pressure and high polarity. In this project, we're interested in oxaloacetic acid, which can be formed by oxidation of succinic acid in the atmosphere. Although we have this established formation, early field study suggested the absence of oxaloacetic acid in the atmosphere. Subsequent studies suggested that the decarboxylation reaction that this molecule goes through might be able to explain that. In my previous paper, I investigated the mechanism of oxaloacetic acid when it goes through the decarboxylation reaction. As you can see from the energy diagram right here, it goes through the six-member ring as transition state, and then would eventually give us pyruvic acid and carbon dioxide. I was also able to confirm that this reaction can be catalyzed by species like amine and ammonia, which is significant because ammonia is also abundant in the atmosphere. With this catalyzed decarboxylation, it becomes more thermodynamically favorable from this energy diagram is because the activation energy of the catalyzed decarboxylation is significantly lower than the uncatalyzed decarboxylation. We're able to conclude that decarboxylation reaction is one of the major removal pathway of oxaloacetic acid in the atmosphere. It was also established that the chemical fate of carboxylic acids in the atmosphere is partially controlled by photochemistry. Photochemistry refers to a set of chemical reactions when a molecule absorbs the energy of a photon and have access to higher energy states. The chemical reactions up here is significantly different from the ground state chemical reaction, which makes the study of these reactions very exciting. Now, when the molecule relaxes from higher excited state to the first excited state, that's where the photodissociation happens, and then that's what we're interested in. Oxaloacetic acid is not very volatile, so in a laboratory setting, we perform experiment on the ethyl oxaloacetate, its ester derivative, and study the photochemistry of this molecule and perform extrapolation to get information about the photochemistry of oxaloacetic acid. Through this experimental setup, we're able to obtain the first order rate constant of diethyl oxaloacetate when it goes through photodissociation processes. Also, subsequently, we perform UV spectroscopy to get the excited state properties of diethyl oxaloacetate, including the extinction coefficient, the absorption wavelength, and then the contributing transitions corresponding to each wavelength. From these experimental measurement, we calculated the quantum yield of diethyl oxaloacetate to be 20%, which is very high, indicating that the chemical fate of diethyl oxaloacetate is indeed partially controlled by photochemistry. Photochemical processes can unfold on picosecond scale, which makes it very hard to be captured by experiment. So in order to obtain a more comprehensive picture of the photodissociation processes of these molecules, we perform electronic structure calculation and molecular dynamics. Through our calculation, we're able to investigate the properties of this molecule, both on the ground state and on the excited state. We were also able to calculate vertical excitation energy and vertical emission energy to benchmark that against the experimental data. Furthermore, we were able to perform the ab initio molecular dynamics based off the first principle in order to sample the molecule along its potential energy surface, which provides a very vital input to set up the non-adiabatic molecular dynamics to obtain the mechanism of the photodissociation processes. Here, I performed the molecular orbital visualization, which captures the in-phase and out-of-phase interaction of the atomic orbitals. And in here, I visualized the pi orbital, n orbital, and the pi star orbital corresponding to the transitions that we see in the UV-vis spectroscopy. Early NMR experiment suggested that there is a keto-eno equilibrium happening on the ground state for the diethyl oxaloacetate, which is the reason why I performed the visualization to investigate the excited state reactivity for both species. As you can see right here, the excited state reactivity is very different for these two molecules, and what's very interesting here is that for the pi star orbital of the eno form of diethyl oxaloacetate, we have this antibody interaction between this group and that group. So it drives me to hypothesize that there might be a proton transfer mechanism happening on the excited state for this eno form, which led me to investigate the excited state property of the second eno form. And unsurprisingly, the excited state property and reactivity of the second eno form is very different from the keto form and the first eno form. This led me to hypothesize that there might be multiple photodissociation mechanism pathways happening, and each species is responsible for different pathways. We have discussed that the molecular dynamics simulation allow us to obtain a mechanistic detail of molecules when it go through photodissociation process. So I'm going to go ahead and play a movie, and currently this molecule is on the second excited state, and then this process unfolds on a picosecond scale. All right, on the second excited state is vibrating, and then now it jumped down to the first excited state. And what I think is very interesting is that you see this proton transfer happening on the first excited state, which was backed up by our orbital visualization, indicating that the first excited state of this molecule is very reactive. And when it jumps back to the ground state, you see the carbon-carbon bond right here is cleaved. And then now we have this carbon dioxide along with the pyruvic acid, of course, is the eno form. So with these molecular dynamics, we're able to visualize the atomistic mechanism of photodissociation processes, unveil the ultra-fast reaction pathways and dynamic, and we're able to determine observables such as yield and long-lived intermediates, which we can't do using experiment, which is very exciting. Through experiment and calculations, we have calculated the quantum yield, established the ground state and excited state properties, and we have identified new photodissociation pathway of oxaloacetic acid. Moving forward, we want to identify all the photodissociation pathways, and we want to extend the result of this project to other carboxylic acids. And more importantly, this combined experimental and theoretical method can be used to study other carboxylic acids in the atmosphere in order to contribute to the climate models and kinetic models to address issues like air pollution and climate change. Finally, I want to thank the Arnold and Mabel Beckman Foundation for funding this work. I would like to thank my two PIs, Professor Philip Fahia and Professor Sergenis Kurdov, and our amazing research groups for their support and help. And thank you everyone for listening.